And now it's time for Mob Talk Radio with your host, Jeff Canarsie.
Yo, Lord Willin, Jeff Canarsie, Mob Talk Radio. Check it out. Yo, we stay quiet like Russell Buffalino when things will get ugly like Pessi's death in Casino. Who do we know? No one, nobody. But we're all well respected like Della Croce and Gotti. I know wild nights, a van and not turn. Light up a cigar and watch your spot burn. You'll get patty whacked, I'm tough like Irish dock workers. Run with guys, hooligans and block lurkers. Corner berserkers, street savvy soldiers. You owe, you better pay. Don't make me say I told you. Code you don't betray, I say what I mean. Providence and Brooklyn all the way to the bean. I'd rather be unseen, like Vinny the Chin. I don't gotta go to Vegas to see cities of sin. Pull the pin, drop bombs like Danny Green. I write homicide like the murder machine. Lansky Luciano, mastermind the racket. Up in the clam house with $1 million in my jacket. Move around when the streets get darker. Pay homage to real bosses like Gambino and Patriarcha. Mob talking, but you don't talk to the mob. Lord Will and Jeff Canarsie, we stay on our job. This is Mob Talk, straight from the streets. Mob Talk, the life over beats. Lord Will and Jeff Canarsie, bringing you the real. Kill all rats, you already know the deal. This is Mob Talk, straight from the streets. Mob Talk, the life over beats. Lord Will and Jeff Canarsie, bringing you the real. Kill all rats, you already know the deal.
And welcome to Mob Talk Radio. I am your host, Jeff Canarsie. We've got a big show today. We're going to do a Q&A. I'm going to try to get to everybody's questions. As usual, you guys can reach me on Twitter at Mob Talk Radio at Mob Talk Radio 7. You can hit me up on YouTube. It's www.youtube.com/C/Mob Talk Radio. Also on Facebook, type in Mob Talk Radio. When we do these Q&As, often I announce it on Twitter. You can send me a private message there with your questions, or you can jump over to Facebook and send me a message there, or you can just type your question in under the post. What else? We got a lot of questions to cover today. I'm going to try to get to as many of them as I can. I'm a little on some time crunch because I got some other stuff going on, so I'm going to try to get to as many as possible, to at least 30, 31 of them, of the 50 that I did get. Really quickly, November 2nd, John Gotti III, John Gotti Jr.'s son, will be fighting in Twin Rivers Casino in Lincoln, Rhode Island. It's his third professional MMA fight. He's 2-0. Tickets are not yet available for that fight. I'm hoping to be there in person, so if you're in Rhode Island, from New York, from Philly, from wherever, and you go, come over and say hello. Tickets probably should go on sale here, I would imagine, in the next couple weeks, maybe even sooner than that. Looks to be a really good fight. John Gotti III is an incredible fighter, an incredible athlete. He's going to be a rising star in MMA. His first two pro fights were unbelievable. Wasn't much of a fight because John Gotti III can definitely throw. So if you're interested in MMA, you're interested in seeing the fight, definitely check on the internet for ticket prices and etc. But once again, that's going to be on November 2nd, which is a Friday in Lincoln, Rhode Island, at Twin Rivers Casino. There will be a humongous John Gotti III contingency there, as there always is. So once again, I'm going to try to be there. So if you do show up, come over and introduce yourself, say hello. And that being that. Okay, before we get to the Q&A, there's a couple of things I wanted to touch on, and I don't want to get off on a fucking rabbit trail because it's pointless to do it. But there's a couple of things I wanted to address. The first thing is, it came to my attention that a bunch of people are reaching out to other mob sites, trying to get them to write an expose on me, trying to write lies about me. And I'm just going to make this point very short, very quick. I'm not going to mention names because they're not worth the fucking powder to blow them up. But listen, these people have been trying to do this for 3 years now. They haven't succeeded on any fucking level. They have no more platform anymore. And so they're basically reduced to stealing pictures of people, making memes, talking shit. It's pointless, and I wish people would just grow up and move on with their lives, but they're just going to continue to do it. Some of these guys have even gone so far as to say they went and talked to made guys in Philadelphia about me. Well, I know you haven't. I know that's bullshit. I know it's a lie. First of all, let me make one thing very fucking clear to the two nut jobs that are saying this garbage, because that's what it is. It's garbage. First of all, you both are going to claim you knew Nicky Scarfo. All right, take it. The second thing you both do is talk shit about Joey Merlino and a whole bunch of other people in Philadelphia. You talk shit about everybody there, how Scarfo was the greatest, and everybody that's around there now is a garbage pail, and all these stupid fucking things that you say. I've got printouts of everything you've said. So the amazing part to me is that these guys are saying that, and they're acting like they're fucking street guys, but they're hanging out with rats. On what level? And I'm going to say this in a sentence, and you see if you can pick out what the fuck is wrong with this sentence. I'm a tough guy. I'm in the streets. I support Nicky Scarfo. Fuck Joey Merlino. Fuck all these other motherfuckers. But I like hanging out with rats. Does that make any fucking sense to you on any level? On any level. If you're a street guy or a knockaround guy, you know people. You don't hang out with rats. But yet these guys do. And they stay on social media and they say all this ludicrous shit that doesn't make any sense. They claim to go talk to this guy and that guy. They have claimed repeatedly, I talk for Joey Merlino. I don't talk for anybody but me. I've said that repeatedly. I've never met anybody. I don't know anybody. You know what? I don't care if people think I don't know anybody. I haven't met nobody. It's not for public consumption to begin with. But I think I've been very clear on the record about where I've been, what I've done, who I've associated with. And if you don't believe me, that's very easy to find out whether I'm telling you the truth or not. So all that being said, it's not for me to dignify the bullshit that they're spewing out their fucking mouth about me, because it's untrue. And listen, if you got a beef with me, take it up with me. Why are you going to go crawl to everybody and their fucking mother trying to bury me? You can't do it. You've tried repeatedly. You've failed. You've got no fucking format. You've got no fucking stage to spew your shit anymore, because nobody cares. You're still fighting over an issue that's been done resolved. That tells me the mentality of the jerk-offs we're dealing with. A couple of these guys, they pretend, and that's okay. They're entitled to be loyal to the people they hang out with, which are rats. They're entitled to be loyal to those pukes all day long. I don't give a shit. But when you do things like you take pictures off my website with my daughter and you put pedophile on it, believe me, that's taking it too far. These are the same guys that harassed Chris Kasparosa's family. These are the same guys that harassed my family, continue to harass people. This is what they do. And they're nobody. They're guys that sit at home on the computer because they got nothing better to do and they stir shit. And that's okay. They're entitled to do that. But like I said, I didn't want to get off on a rabbit trail about that. I'm just letting it be stated that I don't give a shit what they say. People are constantly coming to me, telling me. But the fact that they tried to go to like other mob pages to try to fucking start and say shit. Like, don't you guys realize it does nothing but make my show bigger? You know, it's retarded. And I'm not mentioning any names because I'm not going to give them any fucking notoriety, because they're nothing. They're garbage pails. They're bottom dwellers. They're nothing. And all they do is sit around and jerk off all over each other and write gossip about other people. And none of them are men. They're all bitches and cowards. And that's the truth of it. I've been well on record saying if any one of these pricks wants to call me and talk to me, I'd be more than happy to talk to them, but they don't. And I will also mention that they keep making these loose fucking threats. Now, here's the funny thing about the threats. I go to Philadelphia 3 times a month minimum. I always announce when I'm there. None of these cowards come out to see me. Why is that? Why is that? They say all this garbage about how Joey Merlino's a piece of shit and George Borghese's a cocksucker, and they use all of these fucking phrases and all of these awful fucking things, and they say about them, and they don't know them, obviously, but yet they don't come after me. They keep saying how I'm a bitch and I'm a pussy and all this kind of garbage, but yet I announce when I'm in Philly and I announce where I'm at, and they never show up. Not a single one of them. I guess they're too busy weeping on Nicky Scarfo's fucking grave and jerking off on it. I think that's what they're probably doing. All right, so moving on to the next fucking topic, George Anastasia. Now, everybody knows that I'm not a fan of George Anastasia for a million different reasons, but I really wanted to clear something up because people have a tendency of thinking that I don't like him because of his association with one guy or because he said this about the Gotti family, and that's not. First of all, I have a personal issue with him, and he knows what that is. He's not a man. He's a fucking coward. We're going to leave it at that as far as that situation goes. But here's my thing. If you're a journalist, right, you get paid to write facts, not gossip. I'm not a journalist. I write facts and I insert my opinion. And when I'm inserting my opinion, I tell everybody what my opinion is. Whether you like it or not, that's okay. But it's my opinion, borderline, at the end of the day. I don't lie about people. But one of the things George has done, the last probably 2 books he wrote were nothing but lies. And that's an issue with me. When you know you're lying and you're trying to ruin somebody else's reputation by lying, then you're no longer an author, you're a jerk-off. All right? That's the first thing. Now, and I can take that one step further. I could take the last book that he wrote, or a couple of books that he wrote, and I can walk in court. Let's say he tried to sue me. I can walk in court with a stack of fucking court paperwork that refutes every single fucking lie that he told. So that's the proof right there. When you write a book, you do research. You don't take somebody's word for it. Yeah, you got to interview people that have different perspectives, and that's acceptable. But what you don't do is just lie. You certainly don't get the FBI to fabricate information for you. You don't get there's so much that I could talk about. And I don't want to get into a specific book or a specific issue. It's just the point that you're lying. You knew you were lying. And when you were called on it, you did nothing to address it. Now, a lot of people have wondered what my issue with him personally is. I cannot legally speak about that. And the reason why is because it involves somebody that I am not legally allowed to speak about any further. And I don't want to go down that trail because it's over and it's done with. Everybody's moved on. But George could have been a man and apologized and spoke out about something, and he didn't. Instead, he ignored it, didn't say anything. And to me, that's a bitch move, especially when your name is being used as a threat. So that's what my issue is with him on a personal one-to-one basis. The other fucking thing with him is that if you're a journalist, yeah, you have a duty to like report and do your thing. Where do you think he gets the information from? He gets it from the FBI, he gets it from Pacer, and he gets it from rats. Rats don't tell the truth. Rats lie. That's what they do. Now, some are going to argue with me and say, well, he's a journalist, and this is what fucking journalists do. How many times have you seen Jerry Capisci on the corner with Dave Ratweiser filming people coming out of an alleged social club, naming them, giving them a rank and position, and talking about old murders they might have been involved in? Who fucking does that? That's a fucking rat move. That's a rat move. If you say allegedly, that's a little different because at least you're giving plausible deniability to somebody saying that's what rumors are. But that's not what he does. They stand there, they take photos of these guys, they give them a name, they give them a rank, and then they sort of try to meld it into some fucking coup d'etat or some bullshit fairy tale that isn't true. And that's what I have an issue with. You're not fucking Geraldo Rivera. You're not going to open up fucking Al Capone's motherfucking safe and find used condoms and Tic Tacs. Let's be realistic here. When you go and you stand on a corner and you take a picture of somebody or you take a video of somebody and you put a fucking name, a title, and a crime on them, what the fuck? Who do you think's going to fucking get a hold of that? The FBI. So you're a fucking rat. That's why I don't fucking like him. And he continues to just lie and lie and lie and lie. I don't like liars. If he wants to, and there is a truth to, sometimes you have to take leaps and bounds, and I get it, and I don't have an issue with spinning something. Sometimes you got to do that. But when you're standing out there videotaping guys, put names, titles, places, crimes, get the fuck out of here. You're a rat bastard. Dave Schratwiser is no fucking better. I don't care. You can stick his fucking Emmy up his fucking ass for all I care. The guy's a fucking jerk off on every fucking level. And let me tell you why. I was at I think it was the last day before they went to the mistrial, or it was the day that Joey was pleading out. All right, that shitbag Schratwiser sitting in the fucking first row, kissing Joey's ass. Which you look at Joey and he's just like, yeah, what am I supposed to do? Joey's trying to be like nice or whatever. And so then what happens is Dave gets up in the middle of the fucking plea shit, full well knowing, you know, what Joey has just said, what is going on in the courtroom. He goes outside and ambushes him with the camera and then starts asking him what the fuck happened in court like he wasn't fucking there. But prior to that, that fucking scumbag. You know, the guy's a jerk off. I can't say it any better. Even Joey told me, you guys a fucking jerk off. You know? It's just, they're idiots. They have nothing better to do. They need to stay their ass in fucking Philly. They don't belong here in New York. And I hope to God I see that prick at the fucking sentencing. I hope I see him there. Because I'm going to say something. Fuck him, rat. All right, so to further that, I was really going somewhere, then I got all rattled. So on the latest Mob Talk shit down, because that's what I call it, in George Anastasia, once again, I told you that this guy validates rats and that's all he fucking does. They do this fucking Mob Talk shit down, and they're talking about 25 years ago with fucking John Stanfa, the war, the shootings, and all this, that, and the third, putting innuendo into everything. This motherfucker has the nerve to say that John Vesey was a great witness and tells a great story. Then Schratwiser comes right along and says, oh God, what was the exact quote? You could not believe him. He's a fucking rat. You could not believe him. He is a fucking rat. And you know the other thing they don't fucking mention is how fucking Vesey, when he gets out of Vesey, who's, from what I understand, I'm not going to tell you where he lives. I heard rumors. But anyway, Vesey begins to harass the Ciancaglini family. Constantly leaves nasty voicemails about how he's going to kill everybody. This is a guy that's not fucking reformed. And this is a guy who's asked they're kissing and pretending like he's a fucking hero. The guy's a fucking junkie. He's a fucking jerk off and a scumbag. They can claim Jesus and a car salesman and all this other bullshit. This guy is a fucking jerk off, a rat, and a scumbag. And they want to treat him like he's queen of the fucking day. That's what I don't get. It's one thing if you're going to cover a fucking subject, you're going to cover all angles from A to fucking Z. They kiss the rat's ass. They treat the rat like he's a king. For what? For what? It's ridiculous. They don't mention anything about the shit VC pulled a couple of years ago. How he stands outside Anita's taking a picture with his middle finger up as a threat. They don't mention that shit. Nope, they want to talk about what a great fucking witness he was and how you could not believe him. These two are scumbags, jerk-offs, and I can't stand either one of them. And I would give anything to sit down at a table across from Anastasia and hear his fucking excuse for why he stayed silent when it came to me and the shit that happened. And he's not going to give me an outlet because I'll call him a jerk off and slap him across his face. I don't like the guy. I won't really slap him, I'm just saying. Verbally, I will. Because I don't like people like that. If you ain't a lawbreaker, you're not a street guy, then you got no business getting involved in my fucking drama, and you certainly got no business allowing anybody to use your name to threaten people. And then you hide like a bitch after you get called out on it. That's what my issue is with him, and I don't like the way he puts guys out. Because you know what? What if a guy isn't a street guy? And he goes in because he's just friends with somebody. You know how many people go to social clubs, please? And what if he puts a name and a title on a guy that's nothing, gets him hemmed up with the FBI? You think the FBI don't watch his bullshit? It's a fucking rat move. If he just covered it and did it in a different way, I probably wouldn't be so pissy. I wouldn't hate him as much. And Schratwiser's just a bitch. He belongs on a fucking dog leash in a fucking corner of a dog park shitting on himself. That guy's a jerk off. Emmy my ass. Bullshitter. That's what he is. He's a jerk off and a bullshitter. So listen, if people like them, that's fine. You're entitled to like what he does. George Anastasia at one point I thought was one of the best writers around until I realized he lied about practically everything. Ron Previty is his fucking hero too. Another fucking jerk off, rat piece of shit. So it's like, you lay with dogs, you get fleas. And that's the moral of the fucking story. And that's why I don't like Anastasia. I don't like him for personal reasons, and I just think that, not everybody has to have the same ideals, and they don't have to have the same characteristics as me, and they don't have to have the same beliefs as me. But I think you have a duty as a fucking journalist, if you want to call yourself that, is to not throw guys under the bus and out them. Or to put ideas with the Dom Grande shit and the mess he fucking started with that. Or, I don't know, covering the fucking, the fact that Joey Merlino has a health thing, I'm not saying it's a problem, but he has a health thing that everybody knows about, which is why his trial was delayed. And he wanted to make sure a judge got a sealed letter about his health, because that's fucking important. And that's fucking news. And they try to spin it. It's like ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. And it's the same sort of behavior that these fucking jerk-offs from the New York Post, when they were talking about the shit that JR, the jerk-off Rubio, said about Joey and some girl, which never happened, and all this crazy, stupid shit. They cover that like it's fucking the truth. And I've told everybody repeatedly, I sat at the trial. If you don't fucking believe that I sat there, ask around. If you know somebody in Philly, ask around. They'll tell you I was there. Look at my Twitter. Every day when I come out, I update everybody. So listen, for all the bullshitters and the people who are saying, ask Dave Schratwiser if I was there. We had a nice little run-in. I was there. I watched the trial. I know what was true and what wasn't. So this idea that people are spewing, oh, he wasn't there, he's just making shit up for Joey because he's a wannabe and all this. Are you fucking kidding me? I was there almost every fucking day with the exception of like a couple of days. And the actual day where they announced it was a mistrial, I wasn't there because I knew that's where it was heading and I had something different to do. So I don't know where these people get that. Maybe it's jealousy. I don't know what it is. But listen, I don't speak for anybody but me. Anything I say here, I'll say to you. That's it. It's straight. I'm not a jerk off. I'm not trying to play a tough guy. I'm not playing an act. This is who I am. You don't believe me? Ask around. Ask around. If you don't think I wasn't there, you don't think I haven't talked to anybody, I've never met anybody, ask around. And for the ones that say they did and they heard this and that, they're lying. They're full of shit. Not even close to being truthful. So all that being said, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to do the Q&A. Thank you very much for continuing to listen to my show and dealing with these rants. Every once in a while, it kind of bends me the wrong way. Not because I have to defend myself, because I really don't. But I think when people intentionally try to lie and people try to intentionally make up shit, that's a kind of a problem. And listen, for those that are going to say, and listen, I've gotten messages about this. You're only defending people because you think it's cool and blah, blah, blah. Listen, if I tell you that my opinion of Joey Merlino is that he is a great guy, a funny guy, a humble guy, a loving guy, then that's the fucking truth. How would I know that if I've never had a conversation with Joey Merlino in my life? And it's not even about whether I've had a conversation with him or not. It's the fact that if I tell you something, I'm not making it up. Because everything that I say about anybody can be verified very fucking easily. People are good people. Shit happens to good people all the time. If Joey Merlino had been guilty of fraud, I'd have told you so. If he was guilty of gambling, I would have told you so. What do you want the guy to do? His nuts were in a fucking vice. You know, the government doesn't just drop fucking charges, everybody. They were beat. Rubio was a joke. Kreisberg was a fucking joke. I have never in my life seen so much misconduct in my life. I mean, I have, obviously, with Greg Scarpa and Whitey Bulger. But that's the God's honest truth. I would never lead you astray. He's a good guy. Joe's a good guy. A lot of those guys are really good guys. But what the fantasy is what the journalists and the press want to put on them. They want to make Joey seem like Dracula, and he comes out of the coffin at fucking 2 o'clock in the morning to be a succubus or whatever the fuck they call it. He's a vampire. He roams the streets drinking blood. They'll tell you anything, but you believe it. Don't fall for the hook, line, and sinker of bullshit and lies, because that's what it is. That's what it is. You know, and some of these guys are my friends, so I'm going to defend my friends. That's what I do. That's what I've always done. Does that put a target on me? Absolutely. That put me on the radar? Probably. It doesn't matter to me. I'm loyal to the people that are loyal to me, and that's the bottom line. In this day and age, finding loyalty is a tough thing. With all that being said, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get to the Q&A. Stay tuned. In my travels, I'm always looking for a clothing brand that I feel like represents me. Anybody can go to a store and buy a t-shirt with a gimmick, but if you believe in 3 core values like I do, loyalty, honor, and respect, then look no further than Omerta Brand Clothing. You can catch them at omertamia.com, MIA.com, with locations in Europe, California, Boston, Brooklyn, Florida, Pennsylvania, and Washington. They have a great clothing line with hats, shirts, sweatshirts, keychains, anything you might need, stickers. You want the rats to stop snitching? Go right out and get yourself a sticker. But if you want to live your life by the gentleman's code, look no further than Omerta Brand Clothing. And welcome back to Mob Talk Radio. We are going to do your Q&A. Hopefully, we're going to try to do this in like an hour and a half, hopefully total today. I don't have the energy for a 2-hour show. I'm going to be honest up front. If for some reason during the show you hear a weird glitch, like I'm talking and it gets stopped and then I kind of say what I was saying, it's because I'm expecting a very big phone call and I can't afford to leave my phone off while I'm trying to do this. So with that, we're going to get to the Q&A. For anybody whose questions did not get answered, it's coming. There's a certain time period and an allotment that I like to use, and I think too much of something is too much. Sometimes I can get long-winded and go on rabbit trails. So if I don't get to your question, don't take it personally. I will get to it probably midweek or next week or whatever. And like I said earlier, I'm probably going to take a week off, but I'm not sure yet. I'll figure that out as we go along. Okay. These questions are in no certain order. All right. Was Frank Matthews really as powerful as he made out? If he was that big, did he really have the power to take on the Mafia like I've heard? If you don't know who Frank Matthews is, he was a very notorious drug and narcotics trafficker, 60s, 70s. He made Nicky Barnes and Frank Lucas look like choir boys. This guy really controlled everything. Back in the 60s and 70s, obviously, like I said, he was a massive narcotics trafficker on the Eastern Seaboard. He operated in the United States, and mainly every major city he controlled. He also fed the major dealers in the United States. According to the DEA, he was the biggest drug dealer pretty much ever, at least in the United States. He ended up holding a summit, which is kind of interesting as we talk about, Appalachian and the Atlantic City Conference and the Havana Conference and all that good stuff. Well, Frank Matthews had one that was similar in Atlanta, where basically he brought in all the big drug dealers, and they sort of sat down and they wanted to talk about how to break away from the Mafia. Because at the time, the mob really controlled the influx of heroin into the United States. And obviously, it was being stepped on a lot. If you don't know what stepped on is, I don't know what to tell you. Stepping on it's just like adding baby powder and taking away the amount of narcotic that's actually in the drug itself. The mob was notorious for stepping on it, so the power in the narcotic itself wasn't that great, and the mob was controlling the pricing. And one of the things that Frank Matthews wanted to do was sort of take the Mafia out of the equation. And also at the time, the mob was really controlling everything that was coming into the country. And Frank Matthews really wanted to put a stop to that. He wanted to be able to, especially for African Americans, not to make it sound like a racial thing, it really wasn't, but he really wanted African American drug traffickers to not have to get their drugs from the mob. He didn't want to have to pay for the mob to supply drugs. And back, like I said, back in the 60s, the majority of the wholesale heroin was imported by the Mafia. Matthews actually ends up going to the Gambino crime family, the Bonanno crime family, out of respect to sort of try to parlay a business arrangement between them. And they weren't interested. And if you look at, I think it's, The Godfather 2, you see that whole sequence where, there are drugs being discussed and Don Corleone just doesn't want to get involved. This is sort of reminiscent of that. So after the Bonannos and the Gambinos pretty much tell Matthews to go fuck himself, he ends up meeting Ray Marquez, who was a Harlem narcotics trafficker, who really was controlling a lot of the drugs. And through him, he ends up meeting Rolando Gonzalez, who was allegedly the Cuban mob godfather in New York. Gonzalez ended up handing Matthews his first kilo of coke. their relationship sort of builds, and Gonzalez would begin importing narcotics from South America, and Matthews would begin to expand his territory. By the 70s, Matthews controlled the heroin in every major East Coast city, and he also supplied all major dealers on the East Coast. The Summit, Matthews, like I said, wanted to build relationships with the Corsicans and the Cubans. Corsica was a major hub of narcotics, and he felt like if he could forge relationships with them, then he could cut the Mafia right out of the process. Matthews' main guy, Tyrone Palmer, would end up getting killed by the Black Philadelphia Mafia, and then 3 of his top lieutenants were pretty much killed right after that. Ultimately, what ends up happening to Matthews in the end is he gets pinched out in Las Vegas. He posts bail. He disappears and was never seen again. There's been lots of speculation on what happened to him. I'm going to tell you the truth, what I think. One of 2 things, and I'm not saying this is a fact, this is opinion. I think he's either dead or he became a government informant. I say that because it's impossible to just completely disappear like that. Just impossible. Especially when $20 million will buy you a lot of fucking running distance. But the reality is with today's time period and just the way that the FBI, the CIA, and et cetera, can really find somebody, I just don't. I think, honestly, I don't think he's alive. I think he's dead. And I'll tell you one of the reasons. I think the fact that he cut the mob out of the process, or was at least trying to, probably created a lot of problems for him. I think the fact that he is one guy who is a major dealer, there's going to be other people that are going to want what he wants. And then you can talk about the Sinaloa cartel and all these other cartels that were starting to move into New York loosely at the time. There's no perfect science to actually what happened to him. But to answer the question directly, no, he did not have the power to push the mob around. He did not have the power to cut the mob out of the equation in New York. Absolutely not. I don't say that for any other reason than he wouldn't have just been taking on one mob family. He would have been taking on 5, and then he's taking on the 5 original families, and then he's taking on Louisiana, then he's taking on Florida, then he's taking on Kansas City and Chicago. He wasn't that powerful. Trust me. So I think the safe thing to answer is no. I don't think he had that much power. He had power, but not that kind of power. All right. Are any guys from the Scarfo era active in Philadelphia? Absolutely. I'm not going to mention names just because, but I will do. I'll give you a good clue. If you read any of Anastasia's garbage, which I'm not saying it's true or it's false, it's been pretty well noted. There's also a website called About the Mafia. They have some articles about Scarfo era guys that are active in Philly. There's a couple of them, which is realistically, and I think I know why you're asking this. And I think the question is based on, is at some point there going to be a schism in Philadelphia with everything that's going on? My opinion is yes. I base that on a conversation that I recently had with somebody, or a couple of conversations that I had with somebody there. And I'm not going to get into who they are or whether they're involved or they're not involved. But it's my belief there's problems. I think the bigger issue is the indictments that are going to come down, that I'm hearing are going to come down. So is there going to be a schism between Scarfo era guys and the Merlino side of things? First of all, I think that would be a dumb decision. I think as long as the ship is floating at sea, you don't make waves. You just keep going along. But in that kind of lifestyle, there's egos, there's money involved, and people are always looking to step into a role that's better than what they have at this current point. So, yes, there are active Scarfo guys that are in Philadelphia, but you can look that information up for yourself. Okay, if you could sit down for coffee and interview any boss, living or dead, who would you choose? Wow. That'd be tough. I wouldn't mind talking to Luciano because he's just a very, very brilliant guy. But I think I could say Tony Salerno too because he was very, very highly intelligent. But I think Russell Bufalino was the guy that I'd love to sit and talk to, just because I think he looked at organized crime in a totally different aspect than a lot of other guys did. He dumped a ton of money into U.S. Steel, into coal plants. He just, to him, it wasn't about a Mercedes and the whores and the fucking big houses. And it was, let me make as much money as I possibly fucking can, not get fucking arrested, not go to prison, and buy legitimate businesses that will take care of my next 6 generations. And that's exactly what he did. And I also think that Russell Bufalino was a large part of history. And I think the historical implications of Russell Bufalino and your Carlos Marcellos and your Santo Traficantes, these are the guys that really were a part of some historical stuff. So for my money, that's who I think I would want to sit down and have a cup of coffee with. All right. Who was more powerful, Russell Bufalino, Carlos Marcello, or Santo Traficante? I think each of them individually had an insane amount of power. But if we're talking about Mafia power, I think Russell Bufalino ultimately had more power than the two of them, only because at one point Bufalino was not only running his own crime family, but he was overseeing the Genovese crime family, and he had a seat on the commission. He just had control in a lot of different things. From he was involved in the Hoffa shit, the Kennedy shit, the CIA Castro shit. So I mean, and as was Marcello and Traficante, but I think Bufalino just, I don't want to say had more respect. I just think he had more power because he was so quiet. Marcello, you talked a lot, not in a negative aspect, but he was just a little too vocal. Traficante was very, very quiet, very brilliant guy. But I think ultimately Bufalino, if all three of them could push a fucking button and have somebody killed. I don't think there's any debate in that. I just think for my money that Bufalino was the more powerful. All right. How was Ronald Jethro Foxy able to become a made man being half Italian? If he was able to, why not Willie Boy Johnson? Okay. First thing is, you got to look historically. When the mob started, it was 100% Italian. Then it went to 50%, back to 100%, back to 50%. So who knows what the fuck it is now. Originally it had to be, at the 50% thing, it had to be your father had to be Italian. I don't think, first of all, in Ronald Jethro made a lot of money. He was able to make a lot of money. And I think when you make money, certain rules are bent for that reason. Why was Willie Boy Johnson not made? I couldn't tell you. But it would have been a massive mistake. Because Willie Boy Johnson was a rat going back to the 60s. So I think it just comes down to which individual family, which rules they abide by, what the boss thinks is good at the time, and what they don't think is good. I think it also comes down to money. Because being half Italian, as long as your father's Italian, as far as I know, then that's acceptable. But who knows? Like I said, I'm not on the commission. I'm not in mob rooms. I don't know, but I think it's just safe to say that it probably goes back to just the idea of, if you're making a lot of money for guys and you'll kill guys, you'll do what they ask, and you got some Italian in you, I think that's good enough for them. And I think that's the way it should be. The days of 100%ers are gone. And let's be honest about something else too. Nobody is 100% Italian. Nobody on earth is 100% Italian. And let me tell you why. Because there were a lot of French in Sicily. There were a lot of Hispanic in Sicily, a lot of African Americans in Sicily, because if you really trace your hereditary, your lineage all the way back, people find out that they've got Jewish in them. People find out that they've got this in them. Not everybody is 100% anything. Your mother, your father could be Italian, but if you go back 10 generations, it might not be so much. Might be some Cherokee Indian, might be some fucking German. So nobody is really truly 100% Italian. The 100% Italian rule is your mother and your father. But I've historically, and from what I've experienced, your father has to be. And that seems to be my perspective. Okay. What are the major differences in how other cities run their families than the other 5 families? It's pretty much universal. Organized crime is organized crime. I think there aren't really any major differences. I think it just depends on the size. Obviously, the size of your family. I think it depends on the area in which your family is relatable. when you work in a small place like Rhode Island, you got to jump out to Boston and New York and other places in upstate New York because Rhode Island is so small. Same can be with Philadelphia. You can have 75 guys, made guys, let's say 50 made guys, 75, 80 total with associates and etc. You've got mainly 10 fucking rackets. And when you have that many guys going after 10 rackets, you have to expand. You have to do other things. You have to go out of the area, which is one of the reasons why I've been told that they've encroached in Delaware. But all that being aside, I think it just depends on what the economic sort of boundaries are. All right, who runs organized crime in L.A.? Absolutely nobody. There isn't a boss of Los Angeles. There are different... the Gambinos have a crew out there, but from the Jack Dragna days, the L.A. Mafia is dead. There isn't really such a thing. There may be a couple of guys that are organized, but a lot of it is it's really considered open territory. So there really isn't anybody that runs organized crime. But if we're talking about organized crime in the Mafia sense, then that's a great answer that I can give you. But if you're talking about organized crime in general, I think the Mexican Mafia by far runs Los Angeles. I don't think there's any way you get around that. I don't think it's bikers. I don't think it's Crips. I don't think it's Bloods. It's the fucking Mexican Mafia. And they're a very, very nasty, powerful group. All right. Let's see. It's been documented that the Hells Angels were pallbearers at the Jerry and Julo funeral. What's the symbiotic relationship between those two organizations and other parts of the country? So this person's basically asking, what's the correlation between motorcycle gangs, specifically the Hells Angels, and organized crime? Very simply, organized crime groups work together. Hells Angels have been notorious at moving narcotics and meth and guns. The Mafia is notorious for needing muscle men, needing hitmen, needing guys to move stuff for them. And so the symbiotic relationship is it's good for business. And I think that's the way it's always been. I can't really talk about the Hells Angels being pallbearers at Jerry Angelo's funeral because I don't think too highly of Jerry Angelo. That's just my opinion. But obviously there was some sort of relationship there. Listen, criminals always find each other and they always find ways to do business together. That's the way it's always going to be. I don't think there's, if you look at Canada especially, what you have there is not groups working together. You have groups working against each other. I think at one point, there was a rumor that Joey Merlino had ties with the Pagans in Philadelphia. Whether or not that's true, I really couldn't tell you. That's what reporters would tell you. But once again, Joey Merlino could walk down the street and not even know who somebody is and say hello to them, and next thing you know, he's like in a conspiracy to whack Bob Hope or something. So I just, you can't believe everything you hear. But I think the reality is, if criminals can make money together, that's what they're going to do. All right. Let's see. I got a bunch of questions to go through here. I have one that I want to get to. That's why I'm thumbing through really quick. And I don't know if I want to, oh my gosh. Too many notes. Joey Naples. We can talk about him. Okay. Okay, it's been documented. Okay, we did that one. Why didn't Howie Winter regain control of the Winter Hill Gang after he was released in 1987? Mainly because he didn't have the support of Ray Patriarch anymore. That had a lot to do with it, and Whitey Bulger pretty much took over operations at that point. Howie Winter was a tough guy, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, he got obviously pinched, and when you get pinched like that, someone's going to begin to take over. And when Bulger did, he really made it profitable, and he really expanded into areas that Howie Winter hadn't expanded to. Whitey Bulger even was supplying the Irish Republican Army with weapons and marijuana in return for weapons and money. And once you take an organized crime unit, a crew, whatever they are, and you're getting involved with the IRA, that's big time stuff. Whitey Bulger for a long time supported the IRA and gave a lot of money every year to them, would help Irish Catholics. He was very obviously Irish oriented, much like Danny Green was as well. But that's ultimately why Howie Winter wasn't able to take back over control. Once he was gone, and listen, Howie Winter had a lot of protection from Ray Patriarca. They were very close, but you know, when Whitey Bulger comes along and he starts to advance the rackets and they're making a lot more money, it makes more sense for somebody like Howie Winter to sort of step aside and just leave things be. And believe me, if Howie Winter had truly wanted to take over and come back out and really, really retake over everything, I think he could have easily tried to do it. But I think he just kind of realized his time in the sun was over, and it was just better to not make waves. And that's the most honest answer I can give you. But I will tell you this. I think that fucking Whitey Bulger would have killed him if he had tried. That's my opinion, but I'm basing this once again on Whitey Bulger's character and what he has shown historically to do to people, and I think he would have just killed him. I don't think he would have fucking hesitated. All right, if you had to name the out-and-out boss of all time, who would it be and why? All right, so the out-and-out boss of all time, meaning they are the greatest and nobody could... Ooh, well, I guess I would have to base that on a couple things. I'd have to base that on their ability to make money. I'd have to base it on their ability to use violence, obviously, political motivation, someone who didn't end up in jail for the rest of their lives or didn't spend the bulk of their career. I think Russell Buffalino goes down as the greatest mob boss that ever lived. And I say that because he was able to not only run his family, but he took over the helm of the Genoveses till they could get their shit together. He repeatedly acted in a conciliatory type of way with the other mob families. He didn't spend his whole life in fucking prison. He was able to pretty much stay off the radar for the most part. He was involved in some of history's biggest scandals and biggest conspiracy theories. He died an incredibly wealthy man, died at home. And still to this day, he still owns legitimate businesses. And I think that ultimately, if you are going to look for an archetype to sort of put up on a pedestal and say, okay, this guy is what Cosa Nostra is all about, that was him. He didn't necessarily need, he used violence, don't get me wrong, but he didn't need to. He was, once again, one of these guys that didn't believe completely that violence was always the answer. But I think... I think for my money, I think he's the greatest that ever lived. It's unfortunate, too, especially considering after he died, D'Elia took over, and he did a great job, too. Fantastic job. But I think that historically, even if you took Carlo Gambino, Vinny the Chin, Tommy Lucchese, who was a fucking genius too. My God, Tommy Lucchese. Don't ever look past Tommy Lucchese. He was just fantastic. As far as if we're talking about a model for what the perfect gangster should be, because he was cunning and he was dangerous and he was smart. But yeah, I think Buffalino at the end of the day really was a guy. Listen, he lived at the mob. He lived during the mob's heyday. Didn't do 40 years in prison. Didn't get caught on all kinds of narcotics trafficking. Didn't get caught in murders. So, I mean, you got to look at it in the whole spectrum of history, how he never got caught up. Carlo Gambino is on my short list of that, too. Carlo Gambino is a fucking genius. He controlled the whole entire eastern seaboard. This guy said, you know what? Ships are going to stop coming into New York. That's exactly what happened. He controlled everything. So I think for my money, I think Buffalino. And it's a shame because when he went, like I said, Russell D'Elia took over, and I just think that the family just sort of went in the pisser after all of that went south. But they were for the most part unknown, and there's something to be said for that. I mean, come on, he was involved in the Hoffa thing. I mean, All right, so yeah, that's my answer. I think Russell Buffalino for my money. All right, let's see. All right, which boss had the most legitimate businesses? You know what? That's going to come close between Paul Castellano, because he had a lot of legit stuff going on. Joe Bonanno had a lot of legit business, but I think, honestly, once again, Russell Buffalino, I think, had the most legitimate businesses out of everybody that was involved in the mob. He didn't need to be in Vegas. He had coal. He had money into steel plants. This is a guy that recognized that buying traditional legit businesses like strip clubs and Vegas casinos and restaurants and bars wasn't really a good idea. He got involved in U.S. corporations, U.S. Steel, U.S. Coal, and that's where he bought real estate. So for my money, I think he had probably the most legitimate businesses, and that's not to knock Paul Castellano, because Paul Castellano, as a businessman, legit businessman, not a gangster, not a whatever, as a legit businessman, Paul Castellano was incredibly smart. But as a gangster, he was piss poor. That's really just the absolute truth of the matter. Okay, what do we got next here? Can you talk about Milwaukee Phil and the brief history of the mob in Milwaukee? Okay, I'm not going to talk about the history of the Mafia in Milwaukee because that's just going to take all day, and that's like a whole entire show in and of itself. But what I will talk is about Milwaukee Phil, and I'm assuming you're talking about Felix Alderisio. And if you are, then that's who I'm about to talk about. Felix Alderisio was actually, he was an enforcer and he was a hitman, and he ended up being the underboss for Sam Giancana for a while before he took over as boss from 67 to 69 in the Chicago outfit. He pretty much gets into the mob through his cousin Louis Fratto. And Alderisio begins to work directly for Sam Battaglia and Marshall Caffiano as basically a leg breaker and a bagman. He was brutal, and everybody used Felix for violent shit. Felix was involved in some very notorious violent shit. Jake Greasy Thumb Guzik would actually go on to hire Alderisio to pick up payoffs and to drop off payoffs. So Guzik would go to Alderisio and say, look, here's the money that goes to this precinct for this cop, drop it off. This is the money that goes to this judge, give it to him, drop it off. This goes to this politician, go ahead and drop it off. Go to this guy and pick up this, go to this guy and pick up that. So obviously he was very well trusted and could get the fucking job done. In the 1950s, he would end up going to work for Chucky Nicoletti, and they would do a lot of hits together, and they actually owned what was called the famous Hitmobile. If you're unfamiliar with that, you can look it up, but I'll briefly describe it for you. The car basically was tricked out, and it had levers that moved the lights independent of each other, and the brake lights as well. So you could hit a button and the lights would go out in the front, hit a different button, the lights would go out in the back. You had hidden compartments inside the car itself, so they could add shotguns, machine guns, whatever the fuck they wanted to use. It's suspected that Alderisio killed between 12 to 14 people, but they think as many as 20 others that he killed. They're not sure, obviously, how many, but they think it was between 12 and 14 and as many as 20. Felix was really proficient at a lot of different things, but his bread and butter was boosting. He ended up running a crew of burglars in the Gold Coast District. If you don't know what the Gold Coast District is, that was the very wealthy end of Chicago. And Felix would end up, like I said, running a crew of burglars. And Felix actually lived in the Gold Coast District to begin with. Felix knew how to market jewelry, diamonds, precious gemstones. And what they'd basically do is do a B&E, boost them, and then they would go and sell the stones to mob-controlled stores, to mob-controlled pawn shops, mob-controlled wholesalers. In addition to his criminal exploits, he owned a lot of legitimate enterprises, restaurants like a meatpacking plant, a couple of hotels, some nightclubs, brothels, and strip joints. So he took a lot of the money that he made from illegal enterprises and legitimized himself. Through the 50s and 60s, his crew basically was responsible for, like I said, breaking legs and dropping off kickbacks and payoffs from the north side of Chicago. He also handled the payoffs from gambling, and he delivered millions of dollars a week to the bosses personally. So he was a guy who the outfit could absolutely unequivocally trust to handle a large amount of money. He ended up serving under Sam Giancana and Gus Alex in the late 60s. The FBI identified him as a high-ranking member during the subcommittee investigations of the U.S. Senate Commission on Government Operations and Investigations on Organized Crime. And when he was subpoenaed to testify before this commission, he pled the fifth 29 times. In 1962, Alderisio took part in the infamous hit of Billy McCarty and Jimmy Maraglia, who had killed mob associates Ron Scalvo and Phil Scalvo. Alderisio, Nicoletti, and Tony Spelatro ended up looking for both gentlemen. They ended up finding and capturing McCarthy. Alderisio put McCarty's in a fucking vice, popping his eye out of his fucking head. So if you remember the scene at Casino when Joe Pesci is fucking turning the vice, you made me pop your fucking eye out of your head for Charlie M., you stupid motherfucker. That's basically a reenactment of what actually happened. And ultimately what would end up happening is, like I said, they popped his eye out of his fucking head. And they end up finding Maraglia, and then later, a couple weeks later, Maraglia and McCarty are found. Their bodies are found in the city with their throats slit. He was also the point man for Chicago in heroin smuggling through Turkey, Greece, and Italy. Alderisio would constantly go out of the country, go out of town, and visit other places. But his main point of business was going out to set up drug trafficking, like I said, in Turkey, Greece, and in Italy. And Giancana would always get pissed off at him because when Alderisio would come back, he would tell Giancana about all these beautiful places he saw in the history, and Giancana would just lose his shit. Like, I don't want to fucking hear about the fucking Parthenon in Greece. I want to hear about the fucking heroin. What the fuck is going on? Just send me a fucking postcard next time. So he was the point man in that. He would also be arrested 36 times for assault, battery, racketeering, hijacking, narcotics, loan sharking, extortion, murder for hire, bootlegging, bribery, bombing, counterfeiting, and gambling. If there was a crime, he was involved in it. He would avoid most charges because Chicago owned politicians and judges. And there's a question that I got that's going to come here in a few minutes. Well, you know what? I'll just answer it now, and then I'll finish up. Alderisio is how dependent was Chicago on the Democratic machine? Listen, they got involved in the Kennedy election, like I've said before, and the power of Chicago, and I've said this before about organized crime, when you don't own politicians, you don't own nothing. You're not strong if you can't own Tammany Hall. You're not strong if you can't own a governor or a mayor or state legislators. Chicago, that's where Chicago always got their power from. So, to answer the question, Chicago was completely dependent on the Democratic machine because that allowed them to function. Without that, I don't know if they last as long as they did the way that they did. Sam Giancana kind of fucked that all up in the end. But, okay, so that's the answer to that question. So Alderisio ends up becoming front boss for Tony Accardo in the late 60s, but pretty much the rank and file, the rest of the Chicago outfit didn't like him. They just, for whatever reason, I don't particularly know what that is, they just didn't like him, and not long into his role as street boss, he ends up getting convicted for extortion, and he went off to prison, and then in 1971, he would die in Marion, Illinois, at the United States prison. So his rise, his meteoric rise and fall, was not as epic as other people's, but that's who Felix Alderisio was. Okay, let me turn this page. I've got too much shit here. Okay, let's see. Is the Irish mob still active? Absolutely. Hell's Kitchen still has a contingent of Irish mob guys. A bunch of them were actually arrested about 8 months ago. You can look that information up for yourself. But yes, they are still actually active. There is remnants of the Winter Hill Gang still left in Boston. So yes, they're still active. All right. In the book, I Heard You Paint Houses, they talk about how Frank Sheeran killed Joey Gallo. What do you know about this, and how did the rumors start about this and multiple gunmen entering and shooting him when Frank claims to have been by himself? Very simple. Frank Sheeran is the guy that killed Joey Gallo. First of all, you couldn't use an Italian guy. That would have been too obvious. Frank Sheeran was well known, but not well known in New York. He was well known through Russell Buffalino in Philadelphia. If you look at Frank Sheeran, big, bulky Irish guy. That's why he was able to walk in. That's why Gallo would have had his antenna up. But I think that Joey Gallo wouldn't have been suspicious about an Irish guy walking in. And I think where the rumors start is deflection. I think people are going to, when somebody walks in and all of a sudden they just start opening up and everybody's diving and flying everywhere and people start running out the door. I think it's very common to be able to not see who did it and to think that there's more people than there actually are. And I think that historically reporters have distorted this event. There are people that don't want Joey Gallo to be killed by a single gunman. They want there to be 4 or 5 guys because it just sort of adds to the lore of Joey Gallo. And I think it just gives more to the scene and to what actually happened than the reality of the event itself. So I think a lot of the rumors are just, and I think the rumors are also deflections for a large part as well. Okay, Gene Gotti and, Gene Gotti and John Carneglia are out. What's your opinion on what they will do? They're retired. Let's leave it at that. And these guys are retired. They just did 30 years in prison. I don't think anybody after they get out of prison is running back to the streets. They did refuse pleas. Do they become active or become normal citizens? They're normal citizens. They just get out of prison. They spend half their life in prison. Listen, anybody that tells you that Gene Gotti is going to run, Johnny Carneglia is going to run out of the streets and start shooting people and extorting people, you're out of your fucking mind. These guys are done as far as I'm concerned, and I just wish people would leave them alone. I don't understand what the fucking sick fascination is with the Gotti family at this point. But people are going to have that fascination either way. No, I would not expect either one of them to be involved in anything. All right, do you believe Michael Spelatro was the real target in the multiple murder of him and his brother, Tony Spelatro? Absolutely not. I don't know where I've seen this like mentioned in a lot of places, and I just don't think it's the reason. First of all, Tony Spelatro was killed for a lot of different reasons, and if I had to go through all of them, we'd be here all day. But the most important part is Spelatro was doing shit in Las Vegas without permission. He was fucking with Lefty Rosenthal, his wife, which created problems. He actually tried to kill Lefty Rosenthal, and that created problems. Then they have the Hole in the Wall gang, and everybody's getting pinched, and everybody's doing drugs. That's why Tony Spelatro was killed. He had been called back. He was indicted for murder back in Chicago. They were afraid Tony Spelatro was going to start talking. He had to go. They killed his brother as well because they were afraid that if they didn't kill Tony, Michael might come back at them. So take them both out. Easy peasy, 1, 2, 3. That's the reality of it. No, I don't believe that Michael Spelatro was the real target of that. Tony Spelatro was. If it was the case that Michael Spelatro was the real target, they don't even kill Tony. They just kill Michael and they get it over with. And I'm sure that somebody can make an argument, well, maybe they kill Michael because they're afraid Tony will come after them. Tony was a hardcore gangster. I don't think that he would have been upset, but I don't think that would have been ultimately. He would have killed whoever he thought killed his brother. But I think really at the end of the day, looking at the spectrum of events that had happened, I think this is shutting Tony Spelatro the fuck up for good. All right, why was the outfit so sadistic? As they put guys on meat hooks, they blowtorched people's faces. Was it company culture or just perverts? I mean, which? Listen, Chicago historically has had some really, really tough guys. Meat hooks and blowtorches. Listen, Mad Sam DiStefano ice picking balls. Some guys are just fucking sick. Some guys are just fucking nuts. There are guys that can simply walk up and shoot somebody in the back of the head and walk away. It's done. It's over with. Then you get this other breed that dismembers people. Then you get this whole other breed that dismembers people and puts heads in fucking refrigerators. So, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily Chicago. I just think there's some sick fucking individuals out there. And I don't think it's really relates directly back to one place. And I don't think it's like, oh, well, Joey chopped his head off. So what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to chop his body off and eat his feet. And then I'm going to hang his earrings as fucking door knockers on my front door. That'll really get him. That's one up in Joey. I don't think it's like that. I think there's just some sick fucks, and I think that's the reality of it. There's a huge difference between straight murder and then dismemberment and necrophilia and all that other weird shit that goes on. But I don't think it's really company culture. I just think some guys are just fucking sadistic and some aren't. And that's the reality of it. Like, you have some serial killers that, obviously get off sexually killing people. And then there are some that don't. There are some that leave their DNA at the scene, some that don't. There are some that take mementos, some that don't. There's some that eat fucking people, and some that don't. So I think it's just an individual kind of distortion, to be honest with you. All right, do you think Stephen Caracappa and Louis Ippolito would have gotten away with everything that they did with the Lucchese crime family if Louis Ippolito didn't write that book? Absolutely, unequivocally, I think that they would have gotten away with that. Absolutely, fucking hands down. Hands down, they would have gotten away with it, but Louis Ippolito had to write a book about himself, the Mafia cops, and one of the victims' mother sees this asshole Louis Ippolito on the fucking Sally Jesse Raphael show, says, that's the motherfucker that was looking for my kid. And then all of a sudden, my kid disappears. If he doesn't write that book, I don't think they ever get caught. I don't think that they ever get caught. Sammy Gravano could have ratted them out, and he didn't. So, I mean, and he knew about all of that because he had used them on some stuff. So I think that if he doesn't write that book, I don't think they get caught. I really don't think they get caught. All right, do you think the fix was in when Judge Weinstein tossed their racketeering conviction because of the statute of limitations rule? No, I don't think the fix was in. I really don't. I think the statute of limitations is simply that. I think it was a judge was acting in the capacity of what was legal and what wasn't. Listen, racketeering wouldn't have affected much. They were going to do life without parole anyway. And so I think it simply was just a matter of the statute of limitations would not allow them to charge them with racketeering conviction. But man, I am going to do a show on Stephen Caracappa and Louis Ippolito at some point. Louis Ippolito, first of all, should have never been should have never been on the NYPD to begin with because he had uncles that were gangsters. So he should have never been on the NYPD. Then you turn around and he goes to work for the Mafia. The Mafia should have known better and stayed the fuck away from him. Because like Ron Previty, same deal. Bad cop goes to the mob, is a fucking rat. That's why cops were not allowed near the Mafia or in the Mafia, and so, it's just kind of the way it goes. All right, Nicky Scarfo, is it true he's in an unmarked grave? I don't know. I obviously, I don't know that. I know that his funeral was very quiet. Not many people there. So I don't know if he's in an unmarked grave or not. I know that the family probably just didn't really, the guy died, let's just leave it alone, and the family probably just didn't want to deal with it. Okay. Why did the West Coast families never become as powerful as the ones in the East? I think that the simple answer to that is the ports. I think the ports. The West Coast doesn't have the ports like the East Coast does. I think that there's more factories and more rackets and bigger cities and more things to get involved in the East. That's just my opinion. I'm not knocking the West Coast. But I think that that's probably the most realistic answer I can give you. Okay, anything on Joey Naples from Youngstown? I have a little bit on him, believe it or not. Obviously, Joey Naples was a gangster in Youngstown. He was a representative and a member of the Pittsburgh Mafia. He was a captain of the Youngstown, Ohio faction. The real first recognized capo of Pittsburgh in Youngstown was a guy by the name of Vinny Jimmy Prado. He came into power when other mobsters from Cleveland were jailed in the 80s for killing Danny Green. Prado would actually retire in the 80s, dying in 1988, and Joey Naples would end up taking over. Joey Naples came up in the Pittsburgh Mafia under Mike Genovese. In the beginning, Joey Naples worked hand in hand pretty much with Lenny Strollo. Joey wasn't familiar with organized crime whatsoever because his brothers Billy and Sandy were both involved in organized crime. Sandy would end up getting shotgunned to death with his girlfriend and murdered, and Billy would end up taking over Sandy's rackets, but he too would be killed in a car bomb in 1960. Naples ran an extensive gambling operation. It was hugely profitable. And like I said, he represented Pittsburgh. By 1980, Naples, another associate named James Traficant, who was a local former athletic star who was running for sheriff, was given a $65,000 bribe to sort of turn a blind eye to what Joey Naples was up to. But then in 1990, Strollo ends up getting arrested for gambling and sort of becomes paranoid that Joey Naples is going to absorb all his rackets. So he acts, and in 1991, Joey Naples gets killed by a sniper, and everyone has pretty much said that that was a result of Lenny Strollo being afraid that Joey Naples was going to attempt to take over the power surge that was in Youngstown, Ohio. Youngstown, Ohio has always been a powder keg. If you're unfamiliar with Cleveland and Youngstown, it's unbelievable just the shit that went on there in the 80s. Especially with Danny Green. So if you get an opportunity to research that for yourself, it's really interesting stuff happening in Cleveland, and just insanity. All right, I've heard you say Capone was a gangster, but not the Mafia. Do guys in Chicago get made like other mob families, or do they do something different? First made, okay. Listen, I say that Capone was not Mafia because Capone was a straight-up gangster. Capone didn't believe in the pricking of the finger. Capone didn't believe in the structure. He just believed, let's fucking make money. Let's kill people if we have to, and that's just it. But no, Chicago makes people like everybody else. There was sort of a transference after Capone. Obviously, once Capone was sort of done and no longer, they really became, after Capone, more of a traditional mafia type of family. Chicago, the outfit is still very different in many ways. They're still the mob. They still operate the same rackets, the same fashion, the same hierarchy, the same making ceremonies, and etc. I just think that Capone just was not a traditionalist in the sense, and Capone it was about money for Al. Let's just kill, and get as much money as we can. Capone didn't mind having Irish guys in his crew, didn't mind having Jewish guys, didn't mind having black guys. So the idea that he was Cosa Nostra, a little far stretching, if you want me to be perfectly honest. Now, that's not to take away from who he was as a gangster. Absolutely not. He was still a stone cold killer and a very good gangster. He just wasn't Mafia, as far as I'm concerned. And that's sort of that. Now, like I said, I'm not joking on him at all, or sort of ridiculing him in any sense of the word. Al Capone has his place in mob history. He just wasn't Mafia. He just was more of a stone cold gangster. All right. Oh boy, why did you refer to Joe Pistone as a scumbag? I assume there's another reason other than him being an undercover cop, which was his job. Okay. First of all, I don't have a problem with cops. I don't have a problem with FBI agents. I don't like them, but I'm not going to go out of my way to say anything bad or wish ill will upon anybody. The fact that you're asking me if I call him a scumbag because he was an FBI agent, that has nothing to do with it. Did you know that Joe Pistone committed crimes while he was an FBI agent, buried crimes? See, when you're an FBI agent and you're undercover, you're allowed to do certain things. You're allowed to take money. You're allowed to get money. You're sort of allowed to steal and hijack as long as you report anything. Joe Pistone was violent, took part in beatings, took part in fucking breaking and entering and robberies, and didn't report it to the FBI. He reported it after he was retired because the FBI couldn't do anything to him after the fact. Joe Pistone is directly responsible for some people getting killed. And so while normal people can admire him because he went undercover and he infiltrated the mob and all of this bullshit, and they can believe Donnie Brasco and all this fucking film shit and Hollywood bullshit they see, but the fact is that Joe Pistone broke federal laws. If you're going to be a federal agent and you're going to put yourself on a pedestal as a motherfucking hero, you shouldn't break fucking laws. John Connolly broke fucking laws. Lynn Del Vecchio broke fucking laws as FBI fucking agents. You have a real hard time pressing upon me believing that somebody that they say is a gangster who did A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, when they're standing right next to him breaking the same fucking laws and then not even reporting it to the FBI that they took part in a beating. You can't have it both ways. If you're going to be the FBI hero, it's like the cops and robbers when you're a fucking kid. A couple of your friends played the cops, a couple of your friends played the robbers. And what was the cop's job? To stop the robbers at all cost. And it was the robbers thing to get away with it, to get over on the cops. But you didn't see the cops being dirty. Go back historically and watch fucking films. You know, not all the cops play dirty cops. But Joe Pistone was a dirty FBI agent. He was a dirty agent. It was under him that certain people got killed. And yeah, the mob is the mob, and you can't really blame one guy for one guy getting shot because the guy who shoots the guy is the guilty guy. But at the end of the day, the truth is, Joe Pistone broke laws as an undercover FBI agent, which he was not legally allowed to do. That's why he's a scumbag. If he had just gone undercover and he had been a cop and he just did what he did and he got them all arrested, well, you know what? So be it. You fucking were going to make a fucking you were going to make a fucking FBI agent. So be it. He did his job. Okay, so be it. But he broke laws. He participated in crimes, took kickbacks from crimes, and did not report it to the FBI, which is public fucking knowledge, by the way. So it's not like I'm sitting here on my moral soapbox, because that's what he did. That's why he's a fucking scumbag. All right. Who is the most feared gangster of all time? Who is the absolute badass? Boy, there's a lot of them that are just absolute fucking badasses. I think Greg Scarpa. I don't think there's anybody that's been in the mob that scared anybody like Greg Scarpa did. It's true, Greg Scarpa's a fucking rat. But the reality is that didn't matter that he was ratting on people or not. The FBI let him kill people while he was on the FBI payroll. The FBI let him kill people. Once again, we see the hypocrisy here. Same shit that went on with Whitey Bulger and John Connolly. Lynn Del Vecchio knew Scarpa was killing people. In some cases, gave the address to where an informant lived. And what happens to that informant? He gets killed. There you go. But I think Greg Scarpa was one of the most feared guys ever. I think Tommy Patera was one of the most badass gangsters to ever walk this planet. If you're talking about murder and mayhem. In this instance, we're talking about the most feared. I think Tommy Patera absolutely is fucking feared. I think Nicky Scarfo at one point was absolutely feared by some people, but I don't think he ultimately was the most feared. Albert Anastasia, holy shit. But if you're talking about a guy that walks in the fucking room and demands quiet and respect without reproach, Greg Scarpa, hands down. I don't think anybody is as fucking nutty as that guy was. All right. Let's see. A couple more questions here. What's your opinion of Frank Nitty? Is he a coward who couldn't handle his punishment, or was he a gangster who would have rather blown his brains out instead of ratting? In case you don't know, obviously Frank Nitty committed suicide. I think Frank Nitty had mental problems. I'll be really honest with you. He had a lot of weird quirks, a lot of ADD type of stuff. He had a lot of ADHD, a lot of depression type of stuff. So I think really, did he blow his brains out because he didn't want to rat? I don't really think so. I just think that Frank Nitty wasn't mentally healthy. I think that's the reality, and I don't think that makes him a coward. I don't think anybody that kills themselves is a coward. A lot of people, and this may be like a topic people are going to get upset about, but somebody who decides that they don't want to live anymore, and they decide that they're going to off themselves, that's not a cowardly act, in my opinion. Absolutely not a cowardly act. I think that if you're in a situation like that, I think that you can't really ever guess what somebody's going through. So I don't think killing yourself is a cowardly act. I think that just some people need reprieve, and that's the only way that they can get it. I think it takes weak people don't kill themselves. You got to be pretty strong to make that determination that you don't want to wake up anymore. So I think in the case of Frank Nitty, I think that ultimately, at the end of the day, he was mentally ill. I think that's pretty much safe to say. All right, let me see. I think we're on our last question of the Q&A is, oh shit. Where are we? Ah, jeez. All right. Most countries have their own version of the mafia. Any French and Scottish mob or Welsh mob that you know of? Absolutely. First of all, I need to say this. 'Ndrangheta is in every country of the world. If you don't know who 'Ndrangheta is, go ahead and look them up. They're Calabrian faction of the Mafia. They're in every country, every continent. And here's that phone call coming. Stand by. Yeah, if I was any sort of fucking professional, I wouldn't have picked up my phone, but I had to. That was a call I couldn't miss. All right. So basically the question was talking about organized crime in Europe, being Scottish crime families or Welsh mafia or etc. And like I said, 'Ndrangheta is pretty much all over Europe. They're the biggest group that there is. However, I've got some information on some other groups. And etc. Obviously, there's the Irish mob, there's the Albanian mob, Cosa Nostra's over there, 'Ndrangheta's over there, the Triads, the Russians, the Yaris, the Pakistani mafia, the Sri Lankan, Tamil, the Vietnamese mafia. There's over 7,500 different criminal groups in the United Kingdom alone. You have the Clerkenwell Crime Syndicate. You have the Addams family, which that's no pun on the show, but the Addams family. You have the Turkish Cypriot, you have the Cray twins, you had the Brindles, the Walkers, the Arifs, the Liverpool Mafia. In Scotland, what you had was Arthur Thompson and Thomas McGraw. And they had a huge vendetta between not just each other, but also the clans of the Daniel clan and the Lyons clan. So you can look all that up. Obviously, in Manchester, you have the Noonans, you have the Sayers in Newcastle, you have syndicates. The syndicates in the United Kingdom themselves, Clerkenwell Crime Family, the Hunt Syndicate, the Curtis Warrens, Granby Crew, McGraw Firm, Noonan Firm, Tottenham Mandem, the Cheetah Hillbillies, you've got the Woolwich Boys, but mainly in Scotland, particularly in Scotland, you have Arthur Thompson and Thomas McGraw, who are really the two of the biggest crime guys to ever come out of Glasgow for the last century. And I could do an entire show on both of those guys. But to answer the question, yes, there are mafia families in Europe, mafia families in Scotland, especially Glasgow. But two of the biggest ones to ever come out of Glasgow was Arthur Thompson and Thomas McGraw. Look those up. Also in France, you have the Greek, you have the Albanian mafia, you have 'Ndrangheta, and you have the French mafia. It's all the same, but with 7,500 different criminal organizations in fucking Europe itself, it's kind of hard to really pinpoint one as being sort of the biggest one. But I think for the sake of argument, I think 'Ndrangheta has officially taken over pretty much all of Europe. So those are all the questions I got. I think a bunch of people, I'm getting more questions right now as we speak. A bunch of people did send some in at the last minute, but I just didn't get to them. And so that's all that there is going to be to that. Now, you can reach out to me at Real Mob Talk 7 on Twitter. Give us a follow, give us a like. Check us out on YouTube. I think it's www.youtube.com/C/Mob Talk Radio. Like and subscribe and share. It's all I ask you to do. If you don't want to subscribe, I don't care if you do or not. Just do me a favor. Even if you hate my shit, just share it. That's all I ask. Just share. You can go on Facebook, type in Mob Talk Radio. You can see links to our blog, which is the True Crime Mob Talk Radio True Crime blog. That eventually, the articles that are there are going to be moved over to the new site in January. But if you want to see the links to that, you can hit those links on Facebook. Tons of articles. There's literally 99 articles. You can finger through and thumb through and read about all kinds of different stuff. We just don't cover the mafia. We cover everything crime related. Scott is currently working on the Cray twins, which I think is going to be a great show. He's working on that as we speak. And moving forward, we got a lot of cool stuff coming up, a lot of big news to report, but I just don't want to do it today. And I think as we get closer to January, we're going to start announcing some big stuff. I am going to have Seth Nicoletti and Tommaso Rosiello on the show at some point. They are stars from the upcoming show Brooklyn Ties, which looks absolutely fucking fantastic. If it looked like garbage, I would tell you, but it doesn't. It looks really good. Seth looks fantastic. He's a good guy, smart guy. I really like being around him. he's a good friend. Tommaso, same thing, even though Tommaso likes hairy midgets. But that's like a whole nother story. He's going to kill me for saying that. What the fuck is it with you and this hairy midget shit you keep saying? So all that being said, send your threats, your complaints, or any suggestions you may have to me over on Twitter or over on Facebook. With that, I hope everybody has a great weekend. It's going to be nice and cool here in New York City. Hopefully your weekend goes as well. Fly, Eagles, fly. I know that's going to piss off a lot of people, but I'm an Eagles fan, so fly, Eagles, fly. And I think that's all she wrote. So have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week, but I don't think, like I said, I think I'm going to skip a week, and I think probably, like I said, we'll skip a week, but I'll let you guys know like on Monday or Tuesday. So have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next week or the week after.